Clara Bennett stepped into the grand ballroom with a soft but determined smile. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, their light sparkling like thousands of tiny stars. The polished marble floor gleamed under her sensible black heels. Every eye in the room seemed to follow her as she walked, carrying a silver tray of champagne flutes. She felt her heart flutter, not from fear, but from hope. Tonight was her chance to show everyone that she belonged here, even though she knew many would judge her for being just a secretary. She had spent months preparing for this gala. She had chosen her outfit carefully, simple yet elegant navy, a suit that fit her like a glove, and practiced her posture until she stood tall without stiffness. She could hear the gentle hum of conversation as she moved among clusters of well-dressed guests. Laughter and polite applause drifted through the air, but beneath the polite voices, she sensed a current of doubt. In her mind, she repeated the reason she had agreed to come, to prove her worth to herself and to the people who still saw her only as a helper. She remembered the day her boss, the company's CEO, had invited her. His calm voice on the phone had surprised her. "I need you there," he said. "You have a way of seeing things others miss." She had blinked in disbelief, then accepted without hesitation. Standing now beneath the glittering lights, she felt both the weight of their expectations and the strength of her own resolve. She paused at a tall pillar, adjusting the tray in her hand. She noticed the ornate decorations, golden filigree along the walls, towering arrangements of white roses, and the soft glow of candlelight in crystal holders. The music changed to a slow waltz. A small group of socialites drifted apart, their eyes flicking toward her in quiet amusement. She felt a knot tighten in her stomach, but refused to let it show. She took a slow breath, reminding herself that she was more than their whispers. She was the one who had mastered every detail of the new project that had saved the company millions. She was the one who had stayed late night after night, refining reports and charts until they shone with clarity, although few knew her true contributions. She carried their impact in her heart. She lifted her chin and offered a polite nod to a nearby guest, who responded with a curt smile. As she began to move forward, she thought of her family at home, her younger sister who looked up to her, and her mother, who had worked 2 jobs just to send her to school. Their sacrifices had given her strength to stand here tonight. She pressed her palm gently against her chest, feeling the quick beat of her heart. She would not let cruel words or hidden laughs steal her moment. Instead, she would walk with quiet pride and show that her place in this world was earned by hard work, intelligence, and a steady kindness that no one could take away. With every step, the glitter of the chandeliers above seemed to join her, lighting a path toward the confidence she was determined to claim. Clara balanced the silver platter carefully as she moved through the clusters of guests, her heart pounding like a hidden drum. The soft rustle of silk gowns and the faint clink of fine china filled the air, but beneath the polite chatter lay a sharper sound. The low murmur of voices pointed squarely at her. A group of women in designer dresses paused mid-conversation to whisper and glance her way. Clara caught fragments of their words like cut glass against her skin. "Can you believe she's here? Why would he even invite her? Probably just a token?" Each phrase was a small blade, slicing through the warmth she had felt moments before. She steadied her breath, determined not to let their cruelty show. Her fingers tightened around the tray's edge, and she reminded herself that every step she took was proof of her value. As she offered champagne to a distinguished couple, she heard a slender voice mutter, "Look at those dark hands," and another answer with a laugh that sparkled cruelly in the candlelight. The husband raised an eyebrow as if surprised that she had heard, but Clara simply dipped her head and pressed on. Her mind raced back to the long hours she had spent perfecting the proposal that had won the Gala's keynote speaker for the company. She had designed every slide, rehearsed each point, and still they saw only her title, not her talent. She moved to refill a guest's glass, her eyes catching the reflection of her own face in the polished silver. The flicker of doubt threatened to shadow her features, but she forced a gentle smile and met the guest's gaze. "Another glass, sir?" she asked softly. He nodded, oblivious to the barbs aimed at her. She poured the champagne, the fizzy bubbles rising like tiny hopes in a glass. Then she returned to the group of socialites, silent as a shadow slipping past light. They exchanged new jabs, some about her quiet voice, others about her background. As a small-town girl who had somehow landed a job in this powerful city, their words bounced off the walls, echoing in Clara's mind. For a moment, she felt the sting of tears, the urge to drop the tray and run from their mockery. But she thought of her mother's laughter at breakfast, recalling how she said, "Hold your head high and no one can push you down." She felt that strength bloom in her chest, a warm fire that chased away fear. She lifted her chin and made her way to the next group, her steps calm and steady. With each measured move, she proved to herself that she belonged here. Even if they could see only her skin or her job title, she knew her worth was rooted deeper in her intelligence, her kindness, and the stubborn courage that carried her forward. As the string quartet shifted into a gentle melody, Clara let the music guide her, her heart steady, her resolve shining brighter than any mocking whisper in silk. Clara paused near a marble column when she heard a voice louder than the others. "She's only a secretary," one woman said, her tone sharp as broken glass. The words hit Clara like a sudden chill. Her heart sank, and for a moment she felt the soft tray grow heavy in her hands. She pressed her lips together to stop a quiet whimper. Around her, laughter rippled like cold water, and the glittering chandeliers above seemed to dim. She had felt strong just moments ago, but now the weight of every doubt she had ever known pressed down on her chest. She stepped back, her heels clicking on the polished floor as she searched for somewhere to hide. Her vision blurred with heat and cold all at once. She thought of the long nights spent perfecting the project that had saved the company from disaster. She had drawn every graph, written every line, and still they saw only her job title. The injustice burned inside her like a candle flame. She wrapped her free arm around her waist, as if she could hold herself together from the inside. Clara moved behind a tall potted fern at the edge of the room, its emerald leaves like a small sanctuary. She pressed her back against the cool pot, her tray tucked awkwardly beneath one arm. Through the gaps in the leaves, she could see the ballroom swirl with music and laughter, a world that felt both beautiful and cruel. Her fingers curled into a gentle fist at her side. She wanted to cry, to let the tears fall freely. But she also knew that once she gave in, she might not find her courage again. She closed her eyes and felt her breath hitch. She pictured her sister's bright smile when Clara had first landed the job. She remembered her mother's hands, rough and warm, holding hers after long days of work. Their voices, soft yet determined, told her she belonged anywhere she chose to stand. Those memories were like small lanterns in her mind, guiding her back to strength. She let her shoulders drop and allowed one slow breath to find its way out. When Clara opened her eyes, she saw the CEO, Marcus Langley, standing at the far side of the room. His tall frame was steady as he spoke quietly to a colleague. Colleagues swept the room, and for a brief moment, he paused as though he felt her pain. Clara's heart fluttered at the sight. She realized that he had asked her to come here not out of pity, but because he believed in her skill. His quiet faith shone like a promise in her memory. "You have a way of seeing things others miss." Armed with that thought, Clara straightened her back and smoothed the front of her suit. She shifted the tray so that it felt balanced again, despite the tremor in her hand. She would not let their mockery define her. She would not allow her pain to be the end of her story. With one last glance at the fern's gentle leaves, she stepped out into the light of the ballroom once more. Her chin lifted, her resolve as bright as the chandeliers above. Clara felt the weight of every eye in the room as she stepped forward, determined to carry on, when suddenly a calm voice cut through the buzz of polite chatter. Marcus Langley, the CEO, had paused mid-conversation with two board members and was walking straight toward her. His tall figure moved with quiet purpose, and the room seemed to hold its breath. The group of socialites who had just been whispering behind their fans fell silent, their heads turning as one toward the unexpected disruption. Clara's heart pounded so loud she could almost hear it above the soft strains of the string quartet. She stood frozen, the silver tray in her hand suddenly feeling like a burden she could not bear. Marcus stopped at her side and offered her a gentle nod. He spoke in a clear, steady tone that seemed to carry through every corner of the vast ballroom. "Clara," he said, "would you join me at my table?" The invitation was simple, but to Clara, it felt like a lifeline. She swallowed hard, and for a moment she thought her voice might fail her. Yet Marcus's steady gaze gave her courage, and she found herself nodding, managing a small, grateful smile. The guests parted before them like a sea opening for a ship. Even the mocking glances seemed to fade into shame, as all eyes followed Marcus's lead. Clara set down the tray on a nearby side table, her hands trembling as she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Marcus offered his arm, a respectful gesture that made her feel valued and safe. Together, they moved through the crowd, the soft rustle of silk and the low murmur of curiosity trailing behind them. Where once the air had carried the sting of whispered jabs, now there was a hush of wonder. Some guests leaned forward, trying to catch a glimpse of why the powerful CEO would linger with his secretary. Others exchanged glances of confusion or surprise, their painted smiles faltering. As they reached Marcus's reserved table set with crystal glasses and a single candle burning bright, he pulled out the chair for Clara. She settled onto the velvet cushion, feeling the room shift around her. The candle's light danced in her eyes and reminded her of her own inner spark. Marcus then turned his attention to the entire assembly, standing with such calm confidence that the room fell completely silent. He spoke of Clara's talent, how she had saved the company from costly errors by catching details no one else saw, how her ideas had influenced major decisions, how her loyalty and hard work had earned the respect of everyone who truly knew her. His words echoed in the marble-walled hall, and a warm wave of applause rose up from genuine admirers. The socialites who had sneered now hung their heads or looked away, their cruel amusement replaced by a growing sense of embarrassment. Clara's chest tightened with relief and pride, tears of gratitude brimming in her eyes. For the first time that evening, she felt truly seen. As Marcus returned to his seat, he offered her a glass of champagne, and their hands brushed in a gesture of shared understanding. In that moment, Clara realized that respect could quiet mockery, and that one person's voice spoken with integrity and kindness could change everything. Clara sat quietly as Marcus Langley rose from his chair, the hush in the room settling like soft snow. His clear voice echoed off the marble walls as he spoke of her mind and her heart. He told everyone how Clara had worked late night after night, studying every detail of the new merger plan until her eyes grew heavy and her fingers ached. He described how she had found a tiny error in the financial reporting error that, if left alone, would have cost the company millions. He praised her calm judgment under pressure, how she never lost her gentle kindness, even when the work seemed impossible. As he spoke, Clara felt warmth swell in her chest, a mix of pride and relief that lifted the weight from her shoulders. The faces around her shifted, some softened with admiration, others lowered in shame at their earlier cruelty. Marcus spoke of her creativity, how she had suggested a bold idea in a board meeting that had changed the direction of a key project for the better. He reminded them that real leadership means recognizing talent everywhere it appears, whether in a corner office or serving drinks at a gala. With each sentence, the power in his words grew, and Clara saw tears form in the eyes of strangers. She had barely met when he finished. The room held its breath for a heartbeat. Then genuine applause broke out, gentle at first, then building into a steady wave of praise. The string quartet paused, and a few guests even rose to their feet, clapping. In respect, Clara's own hands shook as she braced herself on the table, her heart pounding in her ears like a drum of hope. She met Marcus's eyes, and he offered a soft nod, as though to say, "This is yours." Her cheeks warmed as she realized how deeply his words had reached into every corner of the room, touching even those who had mocked her moments before. She caught the eye of one of the women who had whispered cruel jokes. The woman's expression was now timid, her gaze full of regret. Clara felt a strong kindness in her chest, and she gave the woman a small, forgiving smile. The gesture surprised some guests, who looked at Clara with new respect. Marcus then gestured for her to take her seat again, but the moment had changed her forever. She felt seen, truly seen, not as a secretary or a token, but as a gifted professional, whose contributions mattered. As the applause faded, Marcus raised his glass toward her, and many others followed suit. Champagne flutes lifted in a toast to Clara's talent and spirit. She picked up her glass with a steady hand, her eyes glistening. With tears that spoke of gratitude and joy, in that bright moment surrounded by warm smiles and heartfelt applause, Clara understood that one voice of genuine respect can turn the tide of cruelty and lift a person into the light. The Gala's glow felt softer now, filled with a new promise that, in a world quick to judge, kindness and truth could still shine brightest of all. Clara sat back in her chair, her heart still racing from the CEO's speech, and looked around the table as the atmosphere in the room began to change. The guests, who had once turned away from her, now leaned forward, their faces soft with curiosity and respect. A woman in a silk gown, who had whispered cruel jokes only moments earlier, approached with hesitant steps. Clara felt the old fear rise in her chest, but she remembered how Marcus had spoken of kindness and true talent. She offered the woman a gentle smile, and the woman's eyes filled with shame and relief as she quietly said, "I'm sorry for what I said." Clara nodded, her voice steady. "Thank you." The apology felt like warm sunlight on her skin. Near the candlelit centerpiece, a group of executives now asked Clara about her work. They praised her ideas and asked for her thoughts on future plans. First, Clara's lips trembled with surprise, but then her confidence bloomed like a flower. Opening to the sun, she spoke with clear, calm words about her vision for the next project. And they listened intently, their nods and thoughtful expressions reminding her how much her mind mattered. As she shared her thoughts, she noticed Marcus watching from across the table, his eyes shining with pride. He reached out and gently touched her hand, a small gesture that told her he believed in her still. Around them, the string quartet resumed a soft melody, and the gentle music seemed to celebrate her triumph. A few guests lifted their glasses in a quiet toast, and Clara joined them, her own glass trembling slightly in her hand. The bubbles rose like dreams coming true, and she let herself savor the moment. The woman who had apologized earlier now stood beside Clara's chair, asking if they could work together on an upcoming charity event. Clara felt a rush of warmth. She agreed, and they began discussing details, their voices low and earnest. The woman's respect felt sincere. Clara realized that even those who had laughed could change when they saw her true self. Nearby, another guest, a senior manager, smiled and said, "We need more people like you on our team." Clara's eyes brimmed with happy tears. She pressed her palm to her chest, feeling how full her heart was. She thought of her sisters, encouraging words, and her mother's belief in her, and she felt their strength beside her now. The Gala, which had once felt like a stage for mockery, had become a place of recognition and new beginnings. As the evening light softened into night, Marcus leaned close and asked Clara if she would join him for coffee the next morning to talk about her ideas further. Her pulse quickened, but she answered with calm joy, "I would be honored." That single invitation, she saw the promise of a future shaped by merit and kindness. The room glowed with soft lamplight and genuine smiles. And Clara realized that her place here was not given by a title, but earned by her courage. Her talent and the simple, steadfast kindness she offered to others. In that moment, she understood that when respect replaces mockery, everyone can rise together. Clara stepped into the quiet marble corridor just beyond the ballroom doors, her heart still warm from the evening's turn. The cool stone walls helped her steady her breath as she recalled every look of respect she had earned tonight. Walked slowly, her heels clicking softly, and thought of how the same guests who once whispered cruel jokes now greeted her with nods and smiles. Each step felt lighter than the one before, as if the weight of doubt had fallen from her shoulders. Paused by a tall window that framed the city lights sparkling below, and she let herself smile at the thought of tomorrow. Marcus Langley's invitation for coffee echoed in her mind, an opportunity she would have never dared to dream of before. She pressed her hand to the window's cool glass, feeling the steady beat of her own resolve. She knew that tomorrow's meeting would not be about titles, but about ideas, about her vision and her voice. She pictured herself at his office desk, papers spread before her, sharing plans for projects that would help the company grow and shine. A soft breeze drifted through the slightly open window, carrying the faint sound of laughter from a distant party, and she imagined that breeze as the breath of new beginnings. Clara thought of her sister waiting at home, eager to hear every detail, and imagined how proud her mother would feel knowing her daughter had stood tall against Mockery. She felt tears of joy gather in her eyes once again, but this time they spoke of hope rather than hurt. She let them fall, wiping them away with the back of her hand, and feeling the gentle warmth of renewal. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, smoothing the front of her suit as if preparing for the next chapter of her career. The thought of mentorship filled her with excitement. She would learn from Marcus's experience, and he would benefit from her fresh perspective. Together, they would shape strategies that valued every team member's contribution just as he had valued hers tonight. Clara lifted her chin, feeling the light of the chandeliers still glowing in her heart. She took one last look at the empty corridor, once a place of nervous waiting, now a path toward her future, and she stepped forward with confidence. She knew challenges would come, but she also knew she had the courage to face them. The night's lessons had taught her that respect could overcome cruelty, and that one voice of kindness could change the world. As she reached the hallway's end, she paused to breathe in the cool air and whispered to herself, "I belong here." Then she walked on, ready to embrace every new opportunity, every new chance to prove herself, and every new moment to shine.